They thought they'd only find ice and stone, but what they found instead rewrote the story of life itself. It began as a routine survey, deep within Antarctica's frozen heart, when satellite scans revealed something impossible. A massive, perfectly symmetrical anomaly buried 3 kilometers beneath the glacial crust. A shape no glacier could sculpt, too regular to be natural. The world's top scientists rushed to the site, driven by hope, fear, and the electric thrill that humankind might finally touch proof of life beyond Earth. The drilling team arrived at dawn, the pale sun barely grazing the endless white. For weeks, they bored through ancient ice older than any human civilization, each layer whispering of past ages. At last, the drill's echo changed pitch. It struck something solid, crystalline, and impossibly ancient. When they extracted the core, everyone fell silent. Encased in clear crystal was a coiled fragment of biological material, gleaming under floodlights like a fossilized serpent. Initial tests confirmed the unthinkable. It wasn't from Earth. News never reached the public. Within hours, the discovery vanished behind government code names and off-grid research facilities. World leaders understood what hung in the balance. Proof of extraterrestrial life, yes, but also a biological code that might offer unimaginable power or unleash horrors buried for eons. As the crystal lay in a hidden lab, teams of geneticists and molecular biologists prepared for a task that felt half scientific miracle, half cosmic trespass. Their mission: sequence the alien DNA, see if it spoke a language human genes could understand, and if so, find out what it said. Days blurred into nights as machines hummed and data streamed across screens. The alien DNA was unlike anything known, its structure beautifully complex yet eerily compatible with human code, like a message left for someone who'd one day find it, or perhaps like a lock waiting for the right key. At first, the data revealed harmless sequences, unknown amino acid patterns, redundancies, loops. But deeper analysis uncovered something chilling: a cluster of genes seemingly designed to interface with human cellular machinery. It was as if this ancient fragment had anticipated another species would discover it, decode it, and, driven by curiosity or greed, awaken what slept within. The scientists were divided. Some urged caution, whether it carried a pathogen or instructions to sabotage life itself. But others argued this was a gift from the stars, a chance to evolve beyond humanity's limits. And so, in tightly controlled experiments, they began to merge alien and human strands, first in bacterial cultures, then in animal cells. Failures came swiftly and brutally. Cells twisted themselves into useless knots or exploded into cancerous growths. Weeks turned into months, and the team wrestled with guilt, wonder, and dread. But science, once unleashed, rarely retreats. And then, success. A sample of human stem cells accepted the alien code without mutation. Under the microscope, something astonishing happened. The cells glowed faintly, pulsing a rhythm that matched no biological process known to science. It was as if the alien DNA had come alive, resonating within human flesh. Word spread through secret channels to defense departments and private labs. Offers of funding flooded in, billions, for a chance to see what came next. What began as discovery turned into an arms race. Nations and corporations alike wanted control over this alien inheritance. In hidden chambers around the world, volunteers, some driven by patriotism, some by desperation, some by the promise of something more, agreed to become living test subjects. Their cells were infused with the alien sequence, the procedure dangerous and irreversible. Most subjects died in agony, bodies unable to contain the cosmic code. But a handful survived, and they were changed. Their senses stretched beyond ordinary limits. They could hear heartbeats across rooms, see faint heat patterns in darkness, even sense others' emotions like ripples in still water. Researchers observed something stranger still. The subjects sometimes spoke words in a language no human ever taught them, and drew patterns matching symbols etched into the ancient crystal casing. It was as if part of them remembered something impossibly old. The altered, as they came to be called, reported visions, towering alien structures beneath black suns, silver oceans writhing with luminous creatures, and a feeling of being watched by an intelligence older than stars. Some described an urge deep and primal, to seek out something buried beneath the ice, to finish what had been started. Meanwhile, the alien DNA defied every attempt at full decryption. Encrypted within its spiral lay symbols and codes that hinted at meaning but defied translation. It was not just a blueprint for flesh, but for thought, memory, perhaps even consciousness. For humanity, the ancient DNA was no longer mere discovery. It had become a mirror reflecting both our deepest hopes and darkest fears. The desire to transcend human weakness, and the dread of what price such power might demand. In boardrooms and secret councils, the question was whispered. Was this truly a gift from a vanished race? Or was it bait? Left to lure the next civilization into opening a door that should have stayed sealed? Yet the momentum could not be stopped. The promise of power was too intoxicating. The fear of falling behind, too strong. And so humanity stepped, eyes wide open, deeper into a mystery written in alien code, buried for eons beneath ice, waiting for us to find it. In the end, it was not curiosity alone that drove them. It was a belief that some knowledge, no matter how dangerous, was worth the risk, that the universe itself had handed humanity an invitation, and all they had to do was answer. Little did they know, in decoding the message, they had already begun to change. And somewhere, across a gulf of light years, something patient, ancient, and watchful had just felt the signal they had awakened. They called it a miracle. They called it madness. But behind sealed doors, they simply called it Project Helix, the gamble to make humans something more than human. The moment the first volunteer opened his eyes, everything changed. His gaze wasn't normal. It felt as though he was staring through the walls, seeing things no camera could capture. Instruments blinked and alarms screamed. The air shimmered around him like heat on desert sand. And though no one spoke a word aloud, the man whispered what the lead scientist had only thought in her mind. It was real. The alien code wasn't just dormant data. It was alive, resonating inside human cells, awakening faculties buried deeper than bone. Word of the success didn't stay locked behind steel and security clearance. It spread like wildfire through hidden networks. A human mind enhanced by alien design, a potential soldier who could sense danger before it struck, a spy who could hear the truth trembling behind lies. The world's most powerful institutions, nations, corporations, shadowy councils, wanted the secret, and they wanted it first. Research facilities that once tiptoed with caution became laboratories of reckless ambition. Volunteers, some desperate, some devout, lined up for procedure. They came from every walk of life. Ex-soldiers, terminal patients willing to gamble, idealists dreaming of uniting worlds, and mercenaries chasing the ultimate edge. The process was excruciating. Alien genes didn't simply blend in. They demanded tribute from a human body. Some subjects suffered organ failure within hours, their cells rejecting the cosmic code as though it were poison. Others drifted into comas, their brains caught between human thought and alien resonance. Speaking in tongues none could translate. But the survivors were changed in ways that defied even the scientists who created them. One woman emerged able to sense electromagnetic fields. She could stand beside humming servers and read data patterns without a screen, or feel the pulse of power lines running beneath city streets. Another volunteer reported an uncanny awareness of emotional states. In a crowded room, he could close his eyes and map fear, joy, deception, like watching colors on a canvas. And there were darker talents. Two, one man discovered, in a moment of panic, that he could interfere with electronics simply by willing it. Phones died in his presence. Security cameras flickered to black. Another subject's wounds closed in seconds under stress, skin knitting itself with alien efficiency. It was a uniform. No two alter humans shared exactly the same powers. The alien code, it seemed, didn't just upgrade humanity. It unlocked potential unique to each host, shaped by mind, memory, and hidden facets of the soul. The more they learned, the clearer the pattern became. This DNA wasn't designed to produce carbon copies. It was designed to adapt, to shape its gifts around the deepest truths of whoever bore it. A living message tailored by the recipient's own psyche. But along with gifts came whispers, alien symbols scrawled unconsciously on walls, sleepwalking episodes leading volunteers to places they'd never been. Some saw visions of towering ruins beneath dying suns. Others heard a song of mourning and dreams, too vast and old for human voices. The scientists called it residual memory. The volunteers called it the calling. And whether they feared it or embraced it, none could deny its pull. In time, the altar grew restless under observation. They felt caged, tested like animals, treated as assets rather than pioneers. Bonds formed among them. A woman who saw emotions gravitated toward the man who could sense danger. The one who bent electricity found kinship with a girl who claimed to hear radio signals as whispers. Together, they formed something new, not quite a family, not quite a faction, but a network bound by shared alien inheritance. Whispers of rebellion spread through the labs. Guards grew nervous. Researchers worked under mounting pressure from above to deliver results, to justify the billions sunk into Project Helix. Politicians debated in secret chambers. Were they creating heroes or monsters? Was the power they'd unlocked a shield or a curse? The Altar themselves struggled with the same questions. Some saw their gifts as destiny. Proof humanity was meant to ascend, to claim its place among the stars. Others saw only corruption, an alien influence worming into human genome, rewriting identity and free will. Then came the first real breach. A volunteer's ability spiked during a stress test. He overwhelmed security systems, disabling locks and cameras in a single moment of raw panic. The Altar didn't flee. They gathered, united by instinct stronger than any order. In that moment, they realized the truth. The alien DNA had done more than grant them power. It had linked them together, mind to mind, heart to heart. The scientists who watched this unfold understood too late. The experiment had crossed a threshold. It was no longer about controlling alien DNA. It was about alien DNA controlling them, or at least nudging them towards something beyond human intention. Within days, the Altar began speaking of visions shared in dreams. A starship buried under Antarctic ice, matching the coordinates of the original dig site. It wasn't speculation. It was certainty, as if they were remembering rather than discovering. The visions felt like instructions, urging them to return to the place where the DNA had slept for eons. Some scientists pleaded to stop the project, warning that the Altar were no longer subjects but carriers of an ancient will. Others demanded the project accelerate, convinced the answers and power lay in following the visions to the ship. The Altar themselves felt torn between awe and fear. But one thing united them, the sense that they were no longer entirely human, not just in ability, but in purpose. The alien code had ignited something dormant, something that made them yearn not merely to survive, but complete whatever mission had been set in motion millennia ago. And so, with governments watching and hidden powers scheming, the Altar prepared a journey back to Antarctica, not as test subjects, but as seekers of truth. Their minds burned with visions, and in those visions lay the silhouette of a buried Ark ship, alien and ancient, yet somehow familiar. What lay inside promised answers. Who had written the alien DNA, why it was left on Earth, and what price awaited those who dared unlock it. They had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. And though fear and hope waged silent war in every heart, the Altered stepped forward, driven by a calling older than humanity itself. Toward the ice, the ship, and the secret that would change the world forever. They felt it before they saw it, a pull in the marrow of their bones, a whisper threading through every thought. Come, remember. The Altered stood on the frozen plains of Antarctica, the wind carving lines of frost on their faces, staring at coordinates burned into their minds by visions none could explain. The ice stretched white and silent to every horizon, but to them it thrummed with purpose. Beneath this ancient glacier, they sensed the presence of something that had waited longer than human history itself. They came not as fugitives, nor as soldiers, but as beings transformed by a power older than Earth, drawn together by the alien code humming in every cell. Each felt the same truth. They were no longer entirely human, and whatever lay beneath the ice was the final answer to what they were becoming. In the dead of night, beneath skies swirling with aurora, they began to dig. Not with machines that would draw the world's eyes, but with gifts the alien DNA had awakened. One altered woman extended her senses to map the glacier's depths, tracing voids in the ice like a blind woman reading Braille. Another man felt vibrations in a rock, guiding their path as surely as a ship's navigator. days blurred into nights, and slowly, an entrance took shape, a frozen archway sealed for untold millennia. Their hearts pounded with both terror and reverence, for this was more than stone. It was a tomb, a vault, a forgotten chapter of cosmic history. When at last they breached the final barrier, breath crystallized and thin, frigid air as they stepped into darkness older than human memory. Inside lay the ship, not of steel or iron, but of black stone and crystal that shimmered with faint inner light, as though it dreamed behind walls of frozen time. Its curves were organic, grown rather than built, etched with symbols the altered had traced in restless sleep. They approached slowly, each footstep echoing in a chamber so vast it felt carved from the bones of the world itself. The air tasted of ozone and ancient dust, carrying a scent that made their hearts ache with forgotten sorrow. Somewhere deep within, the altar felt something awaken, a slow ripple of awareness, as though the ship itself recognized them. Lights flicker along its surface, forming patterns that match the DNA sequences buried in their blood. The group gathered in silence, bound by awe and unspoken understanding. This was no mere relic. It was an ark, a memory of a civilization that had walked the stars before humanity ever learned to stand. And it had not truly died. It had hidden itself within a code, waiting for minds capable of deciphering it. A young man, whose gift let him sense electromagnetic fields, stepped forward. His pulse raced as alien symbols lit under his fingertips, flaring in response to his touch. The ship accepted him, and in a surge of vision, memory flooded into him. Not in words, but in sensations and images older than language. He saw a race of beings shaped from liquid crystal and living light, builders of worlds and gardeners of life. They had seeded countless planets, Earth among them, not merely with organic compounds, but with a fragment of themselves, a genetic key, hidden so deep it would take an age to awaken. But there was more. Behind their creation, behind their hope, lay dread. Something hunted them through the dark, a devourer of worlds, drawn to the light of thinking minds. Faced with extinction, they made the ark, not to save themselves, but to leave a spark that might survive, hidden in the genetic shadows of another species. As the vision faded, the young man dropped to his knees, gasping, tears freezing on his face. He shared what he'd seen, and in each altered heart, all gave way to a deeper question. Had humanity's evolution been guided by chance or by design? Were they the heirs of an ancient hope, or simply vessels for an alien plan that cared nothing for humanity's dreams? The group split along fault lines drawn by fear and belief. Some felt chosen, uplifted by destiny to become humanity's protectors. Others recoiled, fearing they were nothing more than pawns in a forgotten war. The alien DNA had united them, but now it threatened to divide them by awakening truths too vast to bear. Still, the ship offered more than history. It responded to them, open chambers filled with devices whose purposes lay just beyond comprehension. Pools of liquid crystal shimmered, reflecting not their faces, but shapes they might become. Forms neither fully human nor fully alien, but something new. One altered woman stepped closer to the pool, feeling a resonance in her bones. The liquid rose to meet her hand, spreading warmth through her body like the first sunlight after winter. Her mind bloomed with alien symbols, and in that moment, she glimpsed what the DNA had truly unlocked. Not merely power, but memory. Memory that could reshape human minds, awaken hidden senses, even alter the boundaries of life and death itself. Around them, the ship pulsed with quiet life, as though welcoming them home, or awakening them for a purpose they barely understood. For the first time since the project began, the altered no longer saw themselves as test subjects. Here, surrounded by echoes of a race that had transcended flesh and bone, they saw what they might become. The next chapter of a cosmic story too old for human history to remember. But in that promise lay danger. For if a fragment of an ancient civilization could rewrite human DNA and awaken such power, what else might awaken? And beyond the ice, the world had begun to sense something stirring. Satellites tracked anomalous energy spikes. Intelligence agencies whispered of a breakaway group of altered humans converging in Antarctica. World leaders debated whether to reach out or send forces to crush what they could not understand. Within the Ark ship, the altered gathered around a central chamber, its walls alive with swirling symbols. Each saw something different in those patterns. Some saw hope, Others saw doom, but all felt the same inexorable pull forward. One voice broke the silence, trembling yet resolute. We've come this far. If the answers lie ahead, we owe it to ourselves and to the world to find them. Others nodded, despite the fear gnawing at their hearts. They had crossed a threshold, not just of distance, but of identity. There was no turning back. Not for them, nor for humanity itself. Outside, the polar wind howled, but inside, the ancient ship thrummed with purpose. The altered stepped into the unknown, guided by visions etched in alien DNA, driven by a question that had haunted every human age. Who are we, and what do we become when we dare open the oldest doors in the universe? Together, they would find the answer, even if that answer changed everything they had ever known. They thought they were there to discover history, but what they found was prophecy, written in a code that pulsed through their very blood. Standing inside the heart of the Ark ship, the altered felt the walls shimmer around them, alive with symbols that moved like flowing script. It wasn't just a language. It was a living thought, older than any civilization on Earth. As they reached out, those symbols crawled up their skin, burning cold like frost fire, sinking into their minds until memory and meaning blurred into one. Then the visions came, not as fragments this time, but as a flood, entire lifetimes of a vanished race, who had once believed they could see hope in the darkness. Images flashed behind closed eyes. Cities of crystalline towers, skyborne vessels riding solar winds, and beings of living light guiding the fate of countless worlds. But overshadowing it all loomed something darker, a presence so vast and ancient it had no face, only hunger. In their final days, that lost civilization had faced an impossible choice: fight a devourer they could not defeat, or hide a fragment of themselves, a final message carried inside strands of DNA, hoping that one day it might awaken in another race strong enough to finish what they could not. The altered realized the truth with a clarity that chilled them. The alien DNA wasn't just an upgrade. It was a beacon, designed to light up when human minds were finally advanced enough to read its signal. And now that signal had been sent. The ship itself was a transmitter, a biological ark, sleeping for eons under ice, waiting to be found. And as the altered activated it, they felt the pulse shoot outward, invisible yet unstoppable, racing into the void beyond stars. Somewhere out there, something had felt awaken. The youngest among them, a girl whose mind resonated most purely with the alien code, spoke first. Her voice shook with certainty, as if she were repeating words whispered by the ship itself. It's awake now, and it knows we exist. Around them, the ancient walls shifted, revealing deeper chambers. In those shadowed halls lay artifacts shaped by thought, devices designed to respond not to hands, but to minds. Pools of living crystal showed visions of 100 worlds swallowed by the devourer, and patterns that hinted at weapons or defenses, knowledge the altar might wield, if only they dared to claim it. But as they stepped deeper, a darker revelation emerged. In the genetic memory passed into them, they saw that the alien race had once been tempted by the same promise of power. They had experimented, evolved themselves beyond mortality, and in doing so, they had become visible to the devourer. Their light, so bright and beautiful, had become a beacon in the cosmic dark, and it had come for them patient and merciless. What destroyed them had no need for ships or armies. It consumed minds, consciousness, and identity itself, until nothing remained but silence. The alien race had built the Ark ship and hidden it on Earth, hoping their message would survive. Even if they did not, the altered stood silent before this truth. The gifts they'd embraced, the heightened senses, the alien awareness, were never meant for power alone. They were meant to warn, to prepare, to shape humanity into something that could resist what was coming. And yet, as fear knotted in their chests, they felt something else rise, resolve. The alien DNA had changed them, yes, but it had not erased them. It had not stolen their humanity. It had shown them what humanity could become when driven by courage rather than fear. A man whose power let him read electromagnetic fields stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the shifting symbols. "We can't undo what we've awakened," he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "But maybe we can finish what they started. Maybe that's why we were chosen, not to become them, but to surpass them." Others nodded, each finding strength not just in alien memory, but in one another. They realized they were not simply hosts. They were inheritors of both hope and failure. And the choice of what came next was still, in the end, theirs to make. In the heart of the ark, a final chamber opened. A central node alive with swirling symbols that felt almost expectant, as if it were waiting for them to decide whether to claim the power left behind or to bury it forever. The youngest among them, her eyes shining with alien light, spoke again. It's not telling us what to do. It's showing us what happened. The choice is ours. They debated under the silent gaze of the ark. Should they risk using the alien knowledge to prepare for what might come, or destroy it, hoping to hide humanity from the devourer's gaze? Each answer carried a terrible price. Some saw the alien DNA as a curse, a cosmic trap drawing Earth into an ancient war. Others saw it as the only hope of surviving a threat humanity could never face alone. But in the swirl of fear and conviction, they agreed on one truth. Ignorance had never saved anyone. And so, hands trembling but hearts resolute, they stepped forward together. The ark responded, not as a master to servants, but as a teacher to willing students. Images poured into their minds, patterns of technology shaped by thought, strategies not of weapons, but of minds woven into living networks, defenses of will and unity rather than brute force alone. They learned of shields not built from metal, but from harmonizing consciousness, of signals that could hide worlds from cosmic predators, of ways to evolve not into monsters, but into something resilient enough to survive. In that moment, the Altered saw the heart of the alien message. Survival wasn't about power over others, but power with others, a unity of mind strong enough to endure even when the universe itself turned hostile. But even as they glimpsed this hope, they felt the pulse racing outward still, a signal that could not be recalled. The Devourer now knew humanity's name, and it was coming whether tomorrow or in 1,000 years. Yet for the first time, the Altered did not tremble. They understood that what had begun in fear and secrecy had become something more, a calling to defend not just themselves, but the whole of humanity. And though the alien DNA had guided them here, it had not chained them to its fate. Standing in the silent cathedral of the Ark ship, they pledged not to repeat the mistakes of the race that came before, to embrace power without arrogance, to share knowledge rather than hoard it, and to prepare humanity for the darkness ahead. As they stepped from the ancient ship back into the cold breath of Antarctic winds, the ice underfoot felt less like a grave and more like a threshold. They had uncovered hidden truths that reshaped everything they thought they knew about life, about history, about what waited in the endless dark between stars. And though fear walked beside them, so too did purpose, because they were no longer just altered by alien code. They were the bridge between what humanity had been and what it might yet become. It started as a low hum in the minds of the Altered, barely felt at first, like the breath before a storm. But the hum grew, deepened, until it roared through every thought. Something was answering back. They stood on Antarctic ice, staring at the sky that now felt smaller than it had ever seemed. Across black oceans of space, something ancient had opened a patient eye, and it had seen them. What was once only legend whispered by alien memory had become a truth that pressed down on their hearts with cosmic weight. The Devourer was real, and now it knew where to look. Fear might have paralyzed them once, but standing there, bound together by alien code and human will, they refused to run. The Altered had been born in secrecy, forged in fear, but what the Ark ship had shown them was clear. Survival would never come from hiding. It would come from standing together. They gathered in a circle on the ice, feeling the pulse of the Ark still thrumming in their blood. Each Altered soul, unique in power but united by vision, closed their eyes, and for the first time, truly linked their minds. It wasn't just thought they shared, but memory, hope, and raw human terror. And in that communion, they discovered strength no single one of them had known alone. They saw a single unspoken truth reflected in each other's minds. The alien DNA had not made them less human. It had amplified what humanity already carried inside. Courage, empathy, the stubborn refusal to kneel before impossible odds. But far beyond Earth, something stirred. The Devourer wasn't a fleet or an empire. It was an ancient hunger that moved through space like winter moves through a dying forest. It consumed not bodies, but minds and meaning, until nothing remained but silent worlds adrift in the dark. The altered felt its awareness brush against them. A cold curiosity, older than memory, that saw no difference between stars and insects. And yet, within that alien indifference, the altered discovered resolve. They could not run, but they could fight. From the Ark ship's final chamber, they carried blueprints not of weapons, but of defenses built on consciousness. Networks of minds resonating together, creating shields no metal could forge. Ways to hide entire planets behind veils of psychic silence. Methods to unify scattered lives into a single, living will. They knew sharing this knowledge with humanity would shatter old powers, topple governments that had grown fat on secrecy. But keeping it hidden would doom the world to face extinction unprepared. And so they made their choice. The altered stepped from the ice into a new role, not as rulers, but as messengers. Not as monsters, but as living proof that humanity could become more without losing what mattered most. They returned to a world already trembling with rumors of strange lights in Antarctic skies, of voices caught on military channels whispering in a language no human ever learned. Governments demanded answers. News channels swirled with speculation. And into that chaos, the altered stepped forward, not hiding, but revealing everything. They spoke of the Ark ship buried beneath the ice, of the alien DNA that changed them, of the visions that warned of a predator older than civilization itself. And they spoke of what they had seen in each other, the hope that humanity could stand together as no race ever had before. At first, the world recoiled. Fear and faith battled across every screen and street. Some called the altered prophets. Others called them abominations. Armies prepared for war against what they couldn't control. But slowly, in the face of raw truth laid bare, even the doubters listened. The altered offered the alien knowledge freely, not as conquerors, but as fellow humans who had glimpsed what waited beyond the stars. They taught scientists how to weave minds into resonant networks. They shared patterns to hide cities, even continents, behind psychic veils. And through it all, they repeated a single truth. Unity was the only defense that had ever worked. Around the globe, cracks began to show in old rivalries. Nations that had schemed in secret now faced a threat that made borders meaningless. And while some clung to power, many opened their eyes to the cosmic scale of what was coming. The altered never promised victory. What they promised was something greater. The chance to stand as one species, to fight not as scattered nations, but as a chorus of minds united by choice, not by force. Yet as they taught, the altered felt the devourer's gaze still pressing closer. Its presence was like a tide at night, unseen but inexorable. They knew that sharing knowledge was only the beginning, that a greater trial lay ahead. One among them, the youngest whose visions had been clearest, spoke the words none dared say aloud. We may not survive, but if we must fall, let it be fighting for each other, not running apart. The world watched as the altered spread their message. Some listened with hope, others with suspicion. But all understood, at last, that something had changed forever. The devourer's shadow stretched across the stars, but it did not find the earth expected. It found a world no longer blind, no longer divided by fear alone. In secret chambers, humans once consumed by ambition, now debated how to help rather than how to control. Scientists, soldiers, and ordinary people began training to join the psychic networks, each adding a thread to the fabric of planetary defense. The altered themselves knew they might not see the end, but they found peace in knowing that what began as a hidden experiment had become a spark that could ignite millions. One cold dawn, as auroras danced across polar skies, the altered stood again beside the Ark ship. They felt the hum of its ancient mind, and through it, the faint echo of the civilization that had come before. Not commands, but hope, and a warning never forget what truly mattered. They understood at last that the greatest gift left in the alien DNA wasn't power. It was memory, remembrance of what happens when fear triumphs over unity, and a reminder that light only survives when it chooses to shine together. As they looked up into a sky darker than any night, the altered made a final vow, that even if a devourer swallowed them, it would not erase what they had built, that the story of humanity would not end as prey, but as a species that dared to lift its gaze to the stars, and refused to look away. And so, with minds linked by both alien code and human choice, they turned toward tomorrow, not with certainty of victory, but with certainty of purpose, for they had seen the darkness waiting beyond the sky. And still, they chose to stand as a light no ancient hunger could ever truly devour,